Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight, Eleuthera residents react to tighter restrictions for that island. Could a COVID-19 vaccine be closer than we think? Dr. Nakia Forbes weighs in. Plus, years later, the memory and legacy of Dr. Miles Monroe lives on.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thank you for joining us. I'm Kyle Joachim. Topping news tonight, insensitive and unfair is how several Eleuthera residents described tighter restrictions put in place for the mainland. While some were anticipating a full 2-week lockdown, several business owners say they feel the decision was insane.
The rest of us should not suffer. The rest of the business community should not suffer for 1 or 2 bars that are operating outside of the scope of the law.
Danielle Gibson is a small business owner on Eleuthera and says she thinks it's unfair that those who have been following safety protocols now have to suffer with tighter restrictions after health officials noticed a drastic increase in COVID-19 cases on that island, many stemming from bars and a funeral. Then came a press release from the Office of the Prime Minister advising that all domestic flights or sea vessels traveling into or out of Eleuthera are prohibited at this time, except for in the case of an emergency. For Gibson, that further added to the distress as there are now people who are stuck on the island.
I have clients that have been waiting for November 8th so that they don't have to quarantine in Nassau, so that they can go to the passport office and simply collect their passports. People have been waiting for months and months to do this.
For Pineapple Air owner Michael Carey, after having only resumed flights on Friday, to get the news 2 days later was heartbreaking.
They shut down Eleuthera totally, all the airports and boats coming in, but we already had flights that were scheduled to go in there this afternoon that were actually full, which was a good sign. So it was kind of disheartening to have that happen. We just started back up, like I said, on Friday.
Another business owner, Diallo Ingram, who is also a pastor on the island, says with the island already struggling due to the pandemic, he thinks the move to lockdown on weekends, among other restrictions, was not a well-thought-out plan and is threatening their livelihood.
And so even if we had 60 cases on an island over 100 miles long, you know how far and far between those cases actually are. And Spanish Rails with over 20 cases and basically the size of Blair is not locked down. Make it make sense.
Weekday curfew for that island is now 6 p.m. and weekends will see full lockdowns with not even grocery stores open. The Prime Minister in his address also mentioned that Defense Force vessels are in place and on guard to ensure no one leaves the island by boat. Health officials have reported 117 cases on Eleuthera since March. But not everyone is against the tighter restrictions. These 2 primary school educators both contracted COVID-19 and just got out of isolation. They say Eleuthera residents need to do better with following the precautionary measures.
Like I said, I've been in 15 days. If he had given us another 14 days, it wouldn't have mattered. Because like I said, my son and I experienced just about all the symptoms. I was at death's door.
But as a Bahamian, just coming out of isolation on Saturday morning, I feel like it's most definitely is warranted. Because I don't think the persons here are really taking this COVID thing as serious as they should.
Drug maker Pfizer reports that an early look at data from its coronavirus vaccine shows it's more than 90% effective. This could be a game changer in the COVID-19 fight, according to infectious disease expert Dr. Nakia Forbes, who broke down the initial findings of the testing.
Of those people who were involved in the trial, there were still some people who got COVID. When they took a look at those results, it seems that 90% of people who received the placebo who got COVID, had gotten COVID, or of those who got COVID, 90% of them received the placebo and 10% of them received the vaccine. And so it does seem as if there was some protective effect. So they're saying that it has a 90% efficacy. It appears to reduce the chance of getting COVID-19.
While the news is welcomed by many, Forbes says there is still a long road ahead.
They would still have some things to do. They would have to apply for FDA approval, they will probably apply for an expedited review so that it can be reviewed and used. So this is very good. So there's still some work to do. So it looks promising, maybe by the end of the year or early next year.
According to Forbes, if approved, it could be a while before the vaccine gets to the Bahamas.
A vaccine, when it is available, the day that it's available, it won't be a magic bullet. Because remember, the world's population, over 7 billion people, there's going to take time for it to get dispensed, sent out. We have to look at equity, accessibility, and certainly time for people to get vaccinated and for the vaccine uptake. And so we're still going to be doing prevention measures for a while.
As major hotels across the country prepare for reopening amid the COVID-19 pandemic, a large hotel property in the heart of Nassau will open its doors for the first time. In early December, one particular harbor at The Point is expected to welcome its first guests. Bethany McDermott got a sneak peek of the property and filed this report.
On December 15th, one particular harbor is expected to open with some 30% of its 129 condo units already sold. According to Margaritaville Beach Resort General Manager Larry Mager, the resort will employ up to 125 people, the majority of whom will be Bahamian.
We've actually employed most of our management team already, and we're thrilled to say that the vast majority, with basically 95% of the management team are Bahamian. The rest of the staff that we're hiring, we anticipate, between 95 and 98% of the staff will be Bahamian. The $250 million Point project is an upscale lifestyle, residential, and retail development stretched across over 7 acres of Nassau's waterfront. The Point addition to the tourism offerings comes as the country struggles under the weight of the COVID-19-induced economic fallout, which has led to resort developments across the archipelago suspending operations for months on end. A major concern for many has been ensuring employees are safe as they interact with guests daily. To that, Mager says staffers are screened daily. We currently test our staff every day. Everybody has the temperature tested as they arrive for work. Everybody is required to wear a mask while they're on property. It's a temperature test and a rapid test, yes. Okay. And then what we do require is that our management team are required to go through a PCR test at least once a month. According to Mager, the launch of its sales and marketing plan has been largely successful, despite not being able to show the facility due to the pandemic. Still, he said there is a lot of pent-up demand for travel, which they plan to capitalize on. Now, the resort has a number of amenities, including this restaurant, the JWB Prime Restaurant, which Mager says seats some 180 people, inclusive of outdoor dining. He added that the restaurant will also be available for residents to enjoy. Every part of Margaritaville Beach Resort is open to the public. We really are anxious to show it off to the Bahamian people also, because we think it's a brand that really speaks to the Bahamian culture. The resort also has a large swimming pool area, a bakery and plaza market, a library, and fitness room. As for when the entire Point development will be completed, Mager projects by the middle of the first quarter of 2021. Reporting for Our News, I'm Bethany McDermott.
The family of a police officer who died from COVID-19 feels disrespected after senior officers failed to attend his funeral. Jared Higgs has more.
Ever since the age of 4, Sergeant 817 Jefferson Kemp knew what he wanted to do with his life.
His dream and admiration was to be on the police force.
So graduating from the police college in 1997 was a great source of pride for the 47-year-old and his family. According to Kemp's older sister, Doreen Ferguson, he died on October 6th after contracting COVID-19. She says his death came as a shock.
They called him right after the same day that he died. And he was in good spirit, jubilant and everything, so we wasn't looking for him to go as quick as he did.
What was even more shocking, according to the grieving sister, was how he was treated by the police force after his death. She says despite reassurances that the commissioner would be at his funeral, nobody from the top brass was in attendance. She also claims that the force promised to live stream his funeral to its Facebook page, but that didn't happen either.
Nobody called, WhatsApp, contacted us until Saturday to tell us what they were doing.
Police responded to the sisters' complaints over the weekend, insisting that it was changes to the coronavirus rules that prevented them from attending the man's funeral. They also invited family to meet with the commissioner on Monday morning. That ceremony took place at around 11 a.m. with Commissioner Paul Roll explaining to family that the Prime Minister needs to ease restrictions on funerals in order for senior officers to attend.
We regret not being able to attend the funeral, as we've been saying with the recent ones, until the Prime Minister now allows them to open back up. But on behalf of all of us, myself, my family, and our police family, I want to present this flag.
But the late gesture didn't ease the sister's pain.
I was looking for that to be done at the graveyard.
Ferguson says her brother, who loved his family, job, and pets, sacrificed years on the force, and his family expected better.
We lent our brother to them some 23 plus years, and I feel like injustice was done to us.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Take a look at images coming out of the Berry Islands. After making it through a weekend of wind and rain from Tropical Storm Ada, some Berry Island residents are thankful after what they believe was a tornado touchdown, turning over a trailer and damaging a nearby building.
We had a tornado that touched down there shortly after 9 o'clock. That turned over a container, 40-foot container, along with little minimal damage to the house, but also that was for a winter resident. And then a resident got some roof damages also from the tornado. Based on the reports I got, they saw it. The current went off. The winds were blowing. When they got around in the area, the container tipped over, and it had. They said they knew for sure it was a tornado that did that.
Member of Parliament Carlton Boleg says North Andros and the Berry Islands fared pretty well during the storm, but experienced some flooding.
Was injured and no intense flooding. Everything measured out well. We have a lot of yards over here that got water inside of it, which is expected, but no major flooding on neither one of the islands.
We've got a lot more news to get to, but first, meteorologist Greg Thompson gives a first look at our weekday weather forecast. Good night, Greg.
Thanks, Kyle. I'm meteorologist Greg Thompson with your first look at weather, being brought to you tonight by Bahamas First. What's first for you comes first for us. Cloudy conditions outside our studios. The breeze is still kicking up out there. Winds are out of the east at 11 knots. Temperatures in the low 80s. 80 degrees is our current temperature, but the feels like temperature still at 80 degrees. Around the islands, of course, tropical storm Eta is still out there in the Gulf of Mexico, but a lot of feeder bands moving across the area that's generating some showers and thunderstorms. The winds continuing. That's how things will progress for the rest of the evening. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come, remembering Dr. Miles Monroe 6 years after his death. Plus, residents urge each other to follow protocols. Stay tuned.
Just when you thought the year would end drear, Rev came through with Magic and Holiday Cheer. Our cashback will double, making more spirits rise, with chances to spin and with a dope random prize. The rules are quite simple. You can find them online. Just sign up for Trio and pay your Rev bill on time. Our grocery store dash is sure to bring smiles as 16 lucky winners tear through the aisles. Call 601-8992 or visit rev.vs/promotions to find out how you can win with Rev's Field of Magic giveaway. Rev, you and us, together.
You're watching Our News. Welcome back. On this day, 6 years ago, the nation mourned the tragic loss of world-renowned author, pastor, and life coach Dr. Miles Monroe, his wife, and several others who died in a plane crash in Grand Bahama. Georgia Bain takes a look.
Dr. Miles Monroe, his wife, and several others were killed in a plane crash
6 years ago today. Those words sent shockwaves throughout the country as Bahamians learned of the deadly plane crash that killed Dr. Miles Monroe, his wife Ruth Ann Monroe, BFM Vice President Dr. Richard Pinder, youth pastors LeVard and Raydell Parks and their son Johannan, public speaker Diego De Santiago, and pilots Stanley Thurston and Farrakhan Cooper. Miles Monroe Jr. says getting through this day is still difficult for him and his sister.
And I know it's been 6 years, but honestly, it's felt like maybe a year or two because it still feels fresh. And I think it's a lot because, I'm still doing a lot of the things that I was doing back then. Obviously, I'm doing it, on different platforms at what I would consider a different level. But it still feels like, yesterday. It still feels like a dream.
Senior pastor at Bahamas Faith Ministries, Dave Burrows, who worked closely with Monroe for over a decade, says what he misses most is simply the conversations they would share.
In the early days, when, before he got really famous, we used to stay in the same room together. So we would talk all night. He was someone who never stopped talking.
Monroe was heading to a leadership conference on Grand Bahama when his jet crashed in the Grand Bahama shipyard. Monroe's son says during this time, he and his sister have never felt alone as the calls, messages, and emails continue to roll in.
Like, you have people who are recently learning about him and hearing his messages and stuff. And then they find out that he passed. And then it's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. Like, where has this been all my life? And, it's like, messages and calls and responses like that. And we have people that would call us. And it's funny to me because, like, they really don't call for any reason but to express, like, how much the messages changed them or how much it's impacted them.
Although he is gone, the internet is continuing to expand his reach, according to Burrows, who says many are still discovering his work.
There was another lady in Charlotte who said something similar, and she flew down to the Bahamas just to stop by the church and to stop by his gravesite because of the impact that video had on her. So, his messages are continuing to impact the world.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Giorgio Bain.
Well, thanks, Giorgio. Well, some members of the public are urging their fellow citizens to follow the measures put in place by government in order to keep the number of coronavirus cases on the decline. Brenda Culmer works at a bakery and says she's following the rules there and at home.
I hope that they do because we need that. We need the rules to be followed so we too can, move about freely and just obey the laws.
Just obey the rules.
Yes.
Obey the rules.
Yes, as long as they obey the rules, everything will be okay and fine.
Everything will be all right if they obey the rules.
Yes.
Keep the very mask.
Yes.
And that distance, keep the distance.
How important is that?
Very important.
Very important.
Very important.
Very, very important. It's a must.
It's a must.
The Ministry of Health confirmed 17 new coronavirus cases yesterday, far lower than the numbers seen prior to the last set of lockdown measures. These young people had alternatives to large social gatherings.
You still get the cell phone, you still get, ain't nothing really wrong with socializing, I don't think, but I just think like the heavy crowds and too much people around in one environment ain't healthy,
And you got some would always, obviously ain't gonna follow rules. But also some who can follow rules. But it's most important that everybody's just social distance for the meantime until we get over it.
When Our News comes back from the break, local accountants come together virtually for BICA's 2020 conference. Stay tuned.
Are you wondering what your current bill is? Did you know that you could view your past and current bill breakdown online? Once logged into your Rev account via the link my.rev.bs, scroll down to the bottom of the page. You'll see your most recent bills from the last few months. To view all service charges and equipment rentals, click View or Download. We are committed to providing you with excellent, reliable service no matter what. Stay connected with Rev, anywhere, anytime.
The Bahamas Institute of Chartered Accountants got going with a virtual version of Accountants Week. The event, usually held in a local resort packed with industry professionals, was forced to go digital this year via Zoom because of the pandemic. However, BICA President Daveen Bo told attendees all it does is help force the push for more digital inclusion.
With person-to-person contact and communication limited, we have been forced to speed up the process of innovation and keep up with the speed of an ever-changing world. BICA is not immune to this change, and we are changing. We are changing the way we deliver CPD, as you can see today, how we communicate and manage our membership services. We are changing how we meet, and finally, how we collaborate.
There's a full list of panelists this week, including Finance Minister Peter Turnquest and Tourism Director General Joy Jibrillou. Bo says BICA's strategies have been outlined to ensure BICA's relevance, growth, and continued development.
The investment in our technology infrastructure and our team members who are responsible for rolling them out will make sure that BICA is resilient and in a better position to meet the demands of its membership now and in the future.
And that's a look at news. We're talking sports after this break. Stay tuned.
Every day, these men and women put their lives on the line in the most advanced tactical combat units available. They work in areas of conflict and struggle, providing law enforcement and life-saving exercises. They are on the front lines.
In sports, a battle between top teams turns into a one-sided beatdown. Marcellus Hall reports.
Monday once again, and that means week 9 of the NFL season all set to wrap up this evening with your Monday Night Football matchup. Let's take a look and see exactly what's ahead. Week 9 of the NFL season set to close out tonight with Monday Night Football. AFC East battle between the 2-5 New England Patriots and the 0-8 New York Jets. Patriots season has not gone as planned. They've now lost 4 games in a row. Questions have surfaced about everything from Coach Bill Belichick's ability to win without Tom Brady to whether or not Cam Newton still has what it takes to lead a football team. That being said, tonight's game versus the Jets should provide a great chance to break the losing streak. New York has yet to tally a win on the season. They have the worst record in the league. Meanwhile, lots of exciting games on the agenda yesterday as we get you all caught up with your Sunday winners and losers. And of course, we'll give you full details and highlights of tonight's game coming up for you tomorrow. Meanwhile, I'm Marcellus Hall for Our News.
And that's a look at news. We throw it back to meteorologist Greg Thompson for the extended weather forecast.
Thanks again, Kyle. Our second look at weather is being brought to you tonight by Infogro. All warnings have been discontinued for the islands as Tropical Storm Ada is still moving out in the Gulf of Mexico west away from our area, but some feeder bands wrapping around that system still affecting the islands. Showers and thunderstorms will continue tonight through tomorrow as that system hangs out in our area. Your boating forecast for all areas tonight through tomorrow. Your winds will be out of the southeast at 15 to 25 knots. Seas running 4 to 7 feet over the ocean, but up to 11 feet in some swells. Your low tide will be at 8:42 tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Saturday. That's a look at our weather. Have a safe night, everyone.
Well, thank you for joining us for Our News tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Kyle Joaquin. We will see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a good Monday evening, Bahamas.